And of course, confounding new challenges continue to mount, such as the looming threat of climate change. This could be an issue in the high mountain areas of South Asia, for example, where so many Ismailis live and are concentrated.
Cape Town itself has already been affected by many significant disasters and events associated with climate change in the past 2 decades. These include extreme events such as the Cape Flats floods in 1994 and 2001, the Lawrence River flooding in 2013, the Manenberg windstorms, fires in the Joe Slovo informal settlement in the early 2000s, recurrent severe droughts and severe storm surge events. The damage to infrastructure caused by extreme events will have a significant and increasing financial impact on both the City of Cape Town and its citizens.
Most recently, the Western Cape, in which the City of Cape Town lies, has been classified as a disaster zone. Cape Town is experiencing the worst drought in 100 years. There are several likely causes of Cape Town's water shortage, such as climate change due to human-caused global warming results in delayed and erratic rainfall. At the time of this recording, in mid-December 2017, Day Zero, which is the day when Cape Town's taps are set to run dry, is May 18, 2018. The city has been alerted that Day Zero can either be earlier or later based on our water consumptions.
So Dar es Salaam is exposed to various climate hazards, including floods, drought, and heat waves, which have already resulted in deaths, in physical damage, and economic loss in the city. Dar es Salaam is also one of the fastest growing cities in the world. However, this form of urbanization is occurring in the context of poverty, of inadequate planning, and infrastructure that's not able to keep up with the growth. So cities like Dar es Salaam, with this form of rapid urbanization, plus a lack of economic growth and inadequate planning, make cities much more vulnerable to climate hazards and puts it at risk for disaster. This is also especially important because of the projected increases in intensity of climate hazards, as well as projected sea level rise in Dar es Salaam.
When I was living in the US, I'd hear a lot about climate change and its seemingly devastating impacts on things like the weather, far-off icebergs, even polar bears. Now, while these outcomes were definitely sad, the reality is it doesn't really impact me. Sometimes I hear the consequences of climate change were also negatively impacting people in developing countries, but I never really understood how they were impacted or what it even meant. But living here in Bangladesh, I can tell you for certain the impacts are happening here and now, right in front of me. Bangladesh is often cited as the poster child for climate change, and it is so clear why. A warming planet has led to a confluence of environmental challenges in this country. As temperatures rise globally, glaciers are melting and ocean temperatures are rising. These factors lead to rising sea levels. In Bangladesh, this has devastating consequences for coastal communities who are facing death, disease, and destruction. But this also means there is a shifting population. People are increasingly seeking refuge in larger cities away from flood-prone areas. Often, people from villages move into already overpopulated cities like Dhaka, which is hardly able to handle even the current level of inhabitants. Dhaka has an air pollution problem. It's one of the most heavily polluted cities in the world. This leads to poor health for the millions who are subject to fumes every day.
Hello and Ya Ali Madad. I am Sherwaz, here in Hunza, Pakistan, where I live with my wife and 3 kids. The region where I live is a mountainous area, as you will see in the following footage. Here we rely on glaciers and snow-peaked mountains for potable water, irrigation, and all kinds of needs. We have seen drastic climatic anomalies in recent years. Winters are shorter but severe, summers becoming more warmer with unexpected weather patterns. We know temperatures are warmer and this is causing glacial melting, resulting in disastrous flooding. This flooding hits us all, but it has long-term devastating consequences for farmers. In past few years, we have seen flooding at unexpected places and times. There were natural passageways of floods, but now they are everywhere. It causes unprecedented damages for farmers. The flooding causes water channels to destroy. Resultantly, farmers cannot get water for irrigation in time. The floods enter the fields and leave layers of debris which cannot be removed easily. Last summer, we have seen flooding at unexpected places which caused roads to block and even markets were forced to shut because floods was reaching everywhere.
Iran is one of the developing countries that is facing climate change and environmental challenges severely. And because of this, the need for rapid, sustainable solutions are felt more now than any time before. Sadly, environmental crisis of Iran is not only restricted to the capital, Tehran. In fact, it's a widespread problem all over the country. Problems such as drought, air pollution, increased population, climate change, industrial and agricultural production, sanctions, inefficient use of water and natural resources, and lack of enforcement of existing environmental regulations have contributed to Iran's current environmental challenges. The consequence of such problems can be irreversible and cause tension. For instance, lack of water resources forces people to migrate, putting pressure on others. Wetlands are being drained, or air pollution has made living conditions in the big cities of Iran increasingly challenging. Wind erosion is furthering the desertification of agricultural lands, creating a greater demand on the remaining arable areas.
Originally I'm from Pamir, Tajikistan, but currently I'm living in Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan. I've been living in Kyrgyzstan for a few years now, and from my observations, I can say that this country is prone to climate change, just like Tajikistan. Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan are neighboring countries, and they are considered as the glacier centers in the whole Central Asia, since the two biggest rivers in Central Asia, namely Amur and Sirdarya, take source from the glaciers of the Pamir Mountains in Tajikistan and the Tian Mountains in Kyrgyzstan. In Tajikistan, particularly in the Pamir region, which is predominantly Ismaili, the impacts of climate change will have direct consequences on the water supply there, since the people of the region mainly rely on glacier water. The fast-growing temperatures will affect not only the environment, for example, causing droughts and landslides, but will also embrace serious economic and social aspects of the community, for example, leading to food shortages and increased poverty. In Kyrgyzstan, for instance, agriculture and animal herding is the primary source of income for the majority of rural population, particularly in the eastern and southern part of the country. For example, in Narin region, where one of the campuses of the University of Central Asia is located. Climate change results in a decrease of precipitation, which then leads to a decrease of snow cover, more of glacier melting, and lack of water for irrigation, as well as human consumption. And in Kyrgyzstan, all of these will lead to a decreasing of food yields, poor nutrition, and loss of livelihoods.
I never really grew up thinking about climate change or environmental issues. Most people here actually think if the temperature gets a few degrees warmer, it wouldn't be such a bad thing. But I recently learned that a few degrees warmer could have disastrous consequences for people around the world, including here in the UK, which is ill-equipped to handle the few degrees rise in global temperature. Some of the impacts we face here include heat waves and flooding. In June 2017, we saw a heat wave driving temperatures much higher than usual, which resulted in a deterioration of air quality. This meant more people were going to rely on the National Health Service, which is already stressed. In June, a few people actually died as a result of the high temperatures. The UK has experienced heavy floods over the past decade, which have affected thousands of people and caused millions of pounds worth of damage. A small rise in temperatures can increase the water vapour in saturated air by a much larger percentage, which drives an increase in rainfall. In many cities, a small amount of excess rainfall can lead to flooding and sewage overflows.
With Hurricane Harvey, we saw the epitome of the impact that climate change will have on coastal cities. While tropical storms are nothing new to the Houston area, there is a reason we are seeing more of these storms and more intense storms that are making landfall and having devastating consequences.
As I think back, I remember the day when we got all these warnings from the news media, knowing that we had a Category 4 hurricane hitting us. But as Houstonians, we have been used to this hurricane season. We've been through Allison, Ike, Rita, and it was another storm. We braced up for it. Non-perishable foods, water, batteries, everything. So we were optimistic. But as it started, on Friday, schools were closed. The rains had started, and the rains were relentless. It kept on pouring and quite heavy. It was like in 2 days we had what we had in Allison in 5 days. This was unprecedented in Houston's history. Never had we had rains like this. Our city was not used to clearing off this much water. That was devastating, but we couldn't get out of our own homes at that time. Everyone was stranded in their own home. Jamaat Khana had closed down for 5 days. Main Jamaat Khana got flooded. Imara worked day and night to get it ready. Clear Lake Jamaat Khana got immersed and it closed down for 1 or 2 months. It was the aftermath that was more difficult because now people were coming to terms with what had happened in their lives, to get everything together and everything lost, to recuperate everything. It was difficult.
This year, Los Angeles, as well as northern parts of the state of California, saw unprecedented fires raging throughout the state. While wildfires are natural, the speed at which they spread and the distance these fires traveled was not normal. The ongoing drought and the strong winds contributed to the spread of these fires and inhibited the effort to manage the fires. Now, fires in December are not anywhere close to normal, but it seems like this might be our new normal. The closest fire to me was only 10 miles away. I could literally see the smoke rising over the buildings. I could even smell the burning wood when I stepped outside. And obviously that made our city's air quality, which is already poor, even worse. One of my coworkers even had to evacuate from his house. I recently learned $48 million was spent battling the blaze. This is a huge economic liability. It's important that we become aware of our environmental issues because if we continue to ignore them, this will continue to cost us millions of dollars.
Don't be deaf, don't be blind. Hear the noise, someone is crying. Hear the noise, someone is crying. It's our mother, she's in pain. We need to preserve all her strength. We need to preserve all her strength. Nature is in danger, calling for rescue. My children are not replying. Nature is in danger, calling for rescue. My children are not replying. I'm losing my treasure, I'm losing my treasure. Hear the noise, someone is crying. Hear the noise, someone is crying. Don't be deaf, don't be blind. Hear the noise, someone is crying. Hear the noise, someone is crying.